Well, hello, everyone. Here we are, the Wizards of Ox, and we're going to do the session that probably is the one that everybody's been waiting for because we have a lot of people here today as well. And that's on the practical aspects of dealing with dumping. And you're going to get some of our best tips, some of our experiences, people who have gone through dumping, and we'll be able to answer some of your questions at the end of the session, but we're hoping that we've got some really good, basic, pragmatic kind of information for you. As usual, this is not medical advice. We want you to consult with your trusted healthcare professional to make sure that any of the things we suggest are correct for you. And with that said, let me introduce my fellow wizards. The wonderful Karla Wiersma, who comes to us from Colorado, the amazing Susan Owens, who comes to us from Texas, and the astonishing Patricia De La Garza, who comes to us from lovely Belgium. And so I'm here just outside of Toronto in Canada, and we're coming to you from all these time zones, and we're going to give you some information here. So I will turn over to Patricia, who's worked on this week's visual aids, and we'll all have a chance to speak to those as well. But I'm handing it off to you, Patricia.
Okay, let's do it. So this time we are going to have 3 infographics. We're going to really make sure that you have something concrete to look at it's coming. There you go. You know, something that you can keep. You're going to see that the titles are slightly different, and you're going to see that it's just because I can then visualize them easily and add them into different conversations in the group. So I think it's something that has been helpful for most people, and we're going to do our best, to support you in this journey. We talked last time long and hard about what it was that was dumping and how it's not something that you want to avoid. You just want to make it comfortable. But because it's something that is coming out of you that needs to get out. So this session is really going to give you like our tips and tricks of and also a little bit of explanation why we're saying these things, but these are the kinds of things that we use and we have been using for years to make this dumping phenomenon a positive one. And the other thing that it's really, really important is to start noticing what happens after the dump. That is going to be a good indications of the kinds of improvements that you're going to be seeing. And at least in the case of my girl, that was the best part of the dump. I was just like, I can't wait to see what's coming, because there would be new abilities and new surprising, incredible improvements in all sorts of different matters. So one time we would have energy, and another time we would have solving problems or realizing what somebody else was thinking or making a joke or not, relaxing in her face and her body or, growing. So it was just such a variety of improvements that for us, it was just like, yes, she's dumping. This is wonderful. Let's see what comes afterwards. And Karla is, saying yes, and Monique is saying yes, and Susan is saying yes. So dumping is not negative, okay? We want to make it as comfortable as possible, but it's not going to be, a terrible thing to happen. And if you are dumping very violently because you've gone from vegan to carnivore, the wizards are always saying the best way to do this is low and slow. But if you're dumping, first thing to do is increase your fluid intake. That means water. It does not mean tea or soup or whatever other liquid you might be tempted to drink. This is really water. We want to increase that volume of liquid. We want to ease the exit via either your kidneys or your gut. So this is going to be probably the first go-to thing that we would like to remind you of. One of the things that really helps is to keep a reminder. There are some apps on the phone that actually sound like water, and you hear like there was something pouring water. And or just put your countdown timer and set it for every hour and just have a drink all the time. This is probably one of those things that it's really simple and everybody boo-boos it and doesn't see how important it is. So drink your water. And you guys signal, if you want to join in anything. I'm just really happy to share this. So the other one is another classic that we have been talking a lot about, which is the Epsom salts with baking soda. In the beginning of the project, it was just Epsom salts. But as experience has moved on, we've seen that, taking a soak with Epsom salts and with the same amount of Epsom salts and baking soda, it's really good, calming and gentle way to provide your electrolytes, to provide you with minerals, with nutrients, and to give you also that sulfur that is going to be used up also in a lot of your metabolism. So remember that, and I see Susan, is she going to say it? Is she going to say it? I can see it. But remember that oxalate takes the place of many things, including sulfate and including bicarbonate. So when you add it, you are actually helping that competition go the way the body wants it, which is oxalate out and all these good nutrients in. If you cannot soak, if you don't have a bathtub at home, or if you're, somewhere on the road or whatever, there's many ways of having this Epsom salts with baking soda. You can make a solution, and that's literally putting some water and just dissolving, equal parts Epsom salts and baking soda, shaking it up and putting it as a solution with a spritz bottle, or mixing it with some, cream. That might work, or even doing like a foot soak. And with my kids, what we used to do is that I would put them in the kitchen table to do their homework while they were doing their foot soaks. And it worked really beautifully because they would move because their feet were wet and they would do their homework. And then I knew that they were getting enough time with the soak. So we just have to start thinking, a little bit how is this possible? How can we incorporate this into our daily life?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I was the one that first started doing just making a solution. And I did that because I was using Epsom salts with my father who had dementia, and he had broken his hip and he could not get into a bathtub, and there's no way I could get him to sit with his feet in anything. So neither one of those was a possibility. And so what we did was we took a cup and we put about a half an inch of Epsom salts in it. And then we added water, warm water to it. And then we used a sponge and we put that on him. And we learned that was extremely effective. And some of you may be a bit confused about that because you think, oh, all the bad stuff is soaking into the tub or something like that. But actually, your body is taking in those nutrients, and then it can make stuff that helps it detoxify things with the use of enzymes. So even sulfotransferases that use the sulfate that's in magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts, it uses enzymes. So that's not happening in the bathtub. So I just wanted to clarify that because there's a lot of confusion about what's actually going on.
And I wanted to jump in, and I think Karla's got some things too, but I wanted to say, I buy a sized container like this. This is just over 5 kilograms, so maybe 12, 13 pounds of Epsom salts, and I get it at Costco, and it's inexpensive. And so we keep this beside the tub, and my kids liked this. I bought inexpensive plastic measuring cups, and then they could actually open up the lid and use the cup that was right for them. And then they could play with the cup. It became like a bath toy. So we did some things to make it as fun as possible. But having an inexpensive set of cups like this, especially since you should start slowly. The smallest one here is a 1/4 cup. That's 4 tablespoons. That may still be too much for you. But what we want you to do is start much below what you might want to. Especially when there's lots of discussion on the group about 2 cups at a time. So start with something a little bit and see how your body handles it, because all that available sulfate can start up a bunch of work that your body's doing, and you kind of have to be ready for it. So this is a great thing to do. It was like simply one of the best supports in our family. I could take my daughter, she would be melting down because she was just feeling so wrong. And I could put her in an Epsom salt bath with some baking soda, and she'd be right as rain in about 10 minutes. It was astonishing how quickly it started to work. And we started out with a 1/4 cup of Epsom salts, and we started out with little plastic spoons. So we started with a tablespoon of baking soda, and eventually she started to be like a mad scientist, where she would take the 1/4 cup of Epsom salt, she would add the baking soda to it. She would make what she called her cream. She would apply it to her skin, and then eventually it went into the tub. But she was getting benefits from having this on her skin as well. So I do think that there's some tools that we've used that may be things to consider to make it more fun, to make it more accessible, to make it easy even for kids to think about it. And Karla's got some fun visual aids too. So I'm gonna mute me and go back to her.
Well, we used a few things. We would often use Epsom salts, in the bath once we figured out what the good dose was for Ian, without turning him into Zippy the Wonder Squirrel, but actually have him relax. But once we got there, we would use it when he was coming out of the pool, because the chlorine would make him a little nutty. So we would put it in just a spray bottle. And it sometimes gets crusty. So with the spray bottles, you might want to like dip it in hot water to kind of clear it out. We had Epsom salt cream that you can get from a lot of stores. This is New Beginnings Nutritionals, but there are other online sites that sell it, or you can just make your own, which was what we also do. And if you have a scented lotion that you like, you make yourself a little solution with the Epsom salt and the baking soda, put it in, stir it into your lotion. You can put it in a little tub or squeeze bottle, or this is actually a pump bottle. My daughter uses it in a small roller bottle that she just takes with her to school, and she puts it on some pulse points. It's not a whole lot, but it seems to work for her. And she puts it behind the knees, wrist and elbows, and seems to work very well for her. And So, little squeeze bottles. If you just want a solution, you can, use a dropper and put it in your hand and rub it topically. There's all sorts of ways to use it.
I do want to throw out that if you've never used it before, you may not know how you're going to respond. And some people get like incredibly excited and stimulated. And so you don't want to try it the first time at night because it might keep you up all night.
Yes.
But other people, it makes them go to sleep. So until you know what it's like for you, it's better for you to do your testing it out, in the day, or in the morning, so that you really know. And if you run into trouble, you have all day to work it out. So that's just a helpful hint.
And if you're diabetic, you really want to talk to your doctor before using it because it can lower blood sugar levels. So, that's before you use it, you definitely want to speak with your doctor to see whether you should, for one, and then what would be a safe amount to use.
You start with something small. I mean, you could start, and remember, a bathtub is different from like a pan where you would put your feet in. So it's very different concentration if you put a quarter cup in a little tub than in a bathtub. So just remember that you have to start low and slow. If you're concerned, if you're already having a lot of symptoms, if you're not feeling very well, you might want to start, with a tablespoon or a teaspoon, just make it enough so that you're just building up instead of realizing, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. I think I should have gone lower. I think it's much better to be too cautious than the opposite. So does anybody want to take the next one? Or
I would love to, actually, because the big thing here, probably the biggest thing we did, was deal with minerals first and foremost. And like, this is minerals in all kinds of sense. So I just want everybody to keep in mind that electrolytes are just a special instance of minerals. So magnesium is considered an electrolyte and it's a mineral. Sodium's an electrolyte and it's a mineral. So we really found that focusing on minerals first was kind of a gentle support. Again, you still have to go slowly, but if you start to build up with higher mineral foods, maybe even a thing like mineral water to start for some people, Epsom salts, baking soda, or maybe you're using potassium bicarbonate instead of baking soda, which is sodium bicarbonate. But the reason this can help is that oxalate is a mineral chelator. It's going to be impacting your mineral levels in your body. And that's something that can be a basic issue with oxalate, where without the right sort of levels of minerals in your body, even taking certain kinds of supplements may not work for you because you may not have a cofactor that supplement requires. So we really found starting here was a really good place to start. And you can get minerals in all kinds of formats. For us, we did use citrate. It's inexpensive. They're usually easily available and they worked for us, but they don't work for everybody. So for those who find that citrate doesn't support them well, or maybe they get things like increased irritation where you already have inflammation or other kinds of things going on, you can look at bicarbonate forms with things like magnesium. If you can't do magnesium citrate, magnesium malate can be a great one. beware of that fact that it may also help with energy levels, because as Karla, I laugh every time she calls her poor son Skippy the wonder squirrel, because he just got so much energy from magnesium sulfate, which is our Epsom salt. So even with these, we want to start slowly, we want to start carefully, we want to build up. But because oxalate is a straight ahead mineral chelator, which means that as it's moving around, it's a double negative anion. It's looking for its preferred dance partner, as I say, which is a double positive cation. And a lot of those are minerals. Calcium's double positive, magnesium's double positive, iron's double positive. There's many of our minerals which occur in a double positive. And for those that are a single positive, like sodium or potassium, our oxalate anion can actually take two of those. So it's surprising how much impact it can be having on our minerals. And that can be a nice, gentle, supportive place that starts there.
And I want to throw out that, like, my doctor is always trying to tell his patients, you need to get rid of being of your acidity. And so he has people taking a lot of the minerals because he is trying to correct that problem. But, inadvertently, he may be actually helping them if they have an oxalate problem too.
Yeah, very good point.
We love magnesium taurate. I mean, still does the binding, very relaxing, and would mellow Ian right out. And because one of his big things for dumping was just the emotional volatility, and so giving him some of that would make him a little more stable, would be the best word. Magnesium orotate is also pretty good. It helps a lot of people go to sleep, so that's also something to consider.
And magnesium threonate has some good brain support research on it as well. And threonate is THREONATE. So we do have a question here of what magnesium before orotate. That's taurate, I believe you were saying, Karla,
Yes.
first.
Taurate.
And I had made reference to magnesium malate as a potential support for energy levels. So the thing about minerals is that often they're bound to something else when you take them, like magnesium citrate, where you have magnesium and you have citrate. And so you can sometimes get two benefits for one supplement as well. So looking for the magnesium or the calcium or whatever, or even a combination of minerals, but ones that work best for you, can take a little bit of exploring. But if we think about even just getting straight ahead minerals where they're not bound to something, like in a mineral water, can be a place to start. I've actually taken up drinking more mineral water myself, and I find it a really good support. And for things like electrolytes, there's lots of products out there where you're getting different combinations of minerals. Be careful of products where they're going to have colors or flavors or additives, because sometimes we're reacting to that, not the minerals. But
coconut water is a good alternative if you want the electrolytes minus the red dyes and the stuff that would make people nutty.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to work at increasing
Yeah.
minerals, is what we're saying. But certainly for us, what we did was got a basic liquid mineral supplement because my kids were young, and I added that to smoothies. And so I started to up their minerals in this really kind of gentle way as part of their breakfast. We tried to focus on more higher mineral foods, and Epsom salts and potassium bicarb in the tub were awesome. So all of these are really working with minerals as well as these additional substances that may be bound to your minerals.
And I want to say there's a little bit of precedent for taurine actually helping to repair tissues that have been injured by oxalate. So that gives another little plug for it.
Perfect.
Karla, do you want to go with the increase your oxalate intake?
Or, like you said, if you're dumping and you need to slow it down to make it a little bit more manageable, throw in some higher oxalate foods. I don't know that I would go crazy high and throw in the spinach, but that's going to depend on where you've started at and how much you dropped, how hard you're dumping. For me, a square of chocolate, maybe 10, 15 French fries would work for me. I would give, Ian some French fries because that was his favorite snack of choice. Maybe some carrot or, and just something to get you a little more stabilized. So, the goal is not to necessarily stop the dumping unless it's really that bad. It's to slow it down and put you at a place where it's manageable. And like I said, if you need to throw in some higher oxalate foods, do it. Nothing wrong with that.
I think it's really important for you to understand, when we're giving general advice, that's why, because we don't know you personally or your situation specifically. And if you start understanding that dump occurs because of a change in concentration between what's inside of the cell and what's outside of the cell, then you can have that big a change or that big a change.
Mhm.
And if you're having that big a change, a little bit of oxalate, it's not going to cut it. But if you're doing this big a change and then you give, like a little piece of chocolate, whatever, it might take you the other way. So it's, that's why we're saying you have to know where you're going. That's why our recommendation is to go slow. And you just need to see how it's going. I've read in the group lately several times, it's like, well, yeah, they say, to up a little bit your oxalate, but it doesn't work for me. And what I would like for you, if that's your case, to consider is how fast are you dropping? How big is that gap? So that you might need to stop it or to make you feel better, you might need a lot more oxalate than just a little bit of square chocolate or a couple of macadamia nuts.
You might need a bar.
Yeah, so just be aware of the kinds of changes that you're doing, and some of the big players for me, for example, that one of those things that was not in my radar, that it became very quickly in my radar when I understood what was happening, was intermittent fasting. Because all of a sudden you go from whatever level you are to zero. And that's a big change. And whatever level you are working on right now. So just, be aware of what's happening, because we just want to make sure that these changes are gradual. And, so that you avoid the really bad reactions, but that allows you to get rid of all this excess oxalate and make you feel a lot better.
Yeah, it's better out than in.
Mhm.
And it's all about that process being manageable. And so
Yeah,
I just want to second the intermittent fasting thing, because I think we stumbled into that accidentally when everybody caught a stomach bug. So we weren't deliberately fasting, but we were absolutely fasting. And it was amazing what not eating for a couple of days when we still had a fair amount of oxalate in the body. And we'd done this essential nosedive in terms of our oxalate intake. And then you can get some more significant dumping happening. And that may be fine if you're resilient enough for it. But yeah, so we're also trying to give a little nuance here, because if your body can handle it, it's okay. But if your body can't handle it, it's also fine for you to do something to help to slow that process down and give yourself a break.
Yeah, I mean, really, the last thing we want is for it to be so bad that it's debilitating. I mean, if you can't function, that's dumping way too much.
And we absolutely don't want you walking into ER.
Thank you. That was going to be my next point.
And that's something that's happened to me personally. So this is not what we want. We do not want you ending up where you've stressed, your body's so stressed and your symptoms are so severe that you're having a problem. Manageable, great. Can do your life, even if it's not maybe glamorous, wonderful. Is it going to be completely without stress when you move oxalate? Maybe not, but absolutely do not want you to have to necessarily seek out urgent care because you're dumping so intense. It's now scary.
And I just want to throw out too, think about what's going on in your life and what you're expecting. If you're getting married next week, or you're going off to college, or you're making some major change, then that might be not the right time to jump into something really new and to jump quickly.
Absolutely. So we're going to move into other supplements. We have still a lot of information, and we've already been at it for 30 something minutes. So let's keep moving. I would like to give some of you guys the chance to talk about MSM eye drops, because we have not used them here. So, but I know they have been a game changer for you.
Yeah, I have used MSM eye drops. And I had a lot of issues with eyes. I've actually had vitreous gel detachments. I've had, crystals, and I've read research on MSM eye drops and also on NAC eye drops. Now this is N-acetylcarnosine, not the N-acetylcysteine that we also use. NAC is an abbreviation for, but the combination of those two for me was incredibly helpful. They say that once you've got floaters from vitreous gel detachments that you're never going to get rid of them, but mine have actually decreased to some degree with that combination. And it was really helpful with the amount of irritation and pain and, even crystals that were turning up along the edges of my eyes after sleep at night. So I really like those. Those are the kind of thing where you can do some targeted supplementation, where I wouldn't recommend you take a lot of oral MSM unless you're ready for that. That's, in my opinion, that's kind of like a big gun. It does a lot in your body and it can be fabulous. I've taken very large doses of MSM personally and been really great with it, but it's not a one size fits all, and MSM can be doing a lot in the body. But with the eye drop, it's a very dilute solution. It's really targeted application. You're not necessarily setting something off in your whole system. And so I found those really good and, really supportive for eyes. So if you're having problems there, I would consider them.
And I just wanted to add quickly that if you are doing low oxalate for a child, especially for a child that is nonverbal, like somebody on the spectrum, some of the things that you might be seeing when they are having floaters are behaviors like this. Or starting to look things at a funny angle, because they're trying to figure out if they move something, if the floater's still there, if it's still around. So we've had, I've been able to see many of these things, and it's really lovely when parents actually see that there is a reason for those kinds of behaviors, that there could be something going on, and even more importantly, something that they could do about it to make it better. But if you see some of those things, that might be, some indication that that might be the issue. Of course, with somebody who's not speaking or somebody who cannot tell us what's happening, it's always, a guess game. But just looking at those little behaviors and seeing how some of these help, gives us a very good indication that we're probably right on, spot on.
We do have a lot of people on the group. Sorry, I was just going to say, Chanca Piedra. We have a lot of people on the group who speak very highly of this. This was not something that was a great support for me, but for those of you who may be dealing more directly with things like kidney stones and so on, we have had some people on our group report that this has really helped them with that and helped them avoid developing more. And maybe another support to things like lemon water, which is recommended, increasing citrate and things like that. So this can be a way to start to allow you to reduce some of the risk of what oxalate's doing to you, especially if it's resulting in crystals.
Exactly.
I want to throw out that the Vulvar Pain Foundation asked their women, and when they had what they thought was a UTI, then they sent it out for testing to find out if there was a bacteria that was elevated or whatever. A lot of the times there wasn't any infection there, but Dr. Solomons was testing their urine for oxalate and it was elevated. So a lot of our members found that taking Chanca Piedra was helpful in eliminating some of the pain with the UTI that felt like in the UTI. So I just thought I'd throw that out.
Absolutely. Oxalate also has some, we've talked about how it can affect your thyroid. And one of the things that has been very useful is magnesium oil. And magnesium, Monique was the one that discovered it. and magnesium oil is actually magnesium chloride. And, when you're actually feeding that chloride and you're replacing it for the oxalate, then that allows your thyroid to start working better again. So that's another really good thing. And sea salt baths, or, the doctor that I work with is a very big fan of alternating from sea salt baths to Epsom salts bicarbonate baths, just to give a little bit of different nutrients via the skin.
And I'll throw out also that chloride is also a substrate of the family of transporters that transport oxalate. And so these things are like they exchange for each other. They're evening out the concentration on either side of the membrane. So it can trade for anything. So it can trade for chloride, or it can trade for bicarbonate, or any of the other substrates. So this is why the chloride would basically be doing the same thing as the sulfate. Okay.
Yeah. I just realized oxytocin is also an inflammasome inhibitor, and I put it on the wrong line, but sorry. But emu oil is an oil that the people from the Vulvar Pain Foundation have found extremely helpful to avoid the pain and to lower the inflammation and to just make that whole area, much more comfortable. We've used it, and I also used coconut oil, and it also, gave us a good result. And that was something that worked. Oxytocin, which is right next to it, even though it's an inflammasome inhibitor, it's the hormone that actually comes from contact. That's the hormone that you produce a lot of when you're breastfeeding, or when you just get a hug, or you've just been intimate with somebody. So oxytocin is also a powerful inflammasome inhibitor. And we know that if we lower that inflammation, then the whole body is going to be happier and, in a much better place. Oxalate is an inflammasome activator. So anything that we do to dampen that reaction is going to make us feel better. Some of the other inflammasome inhibitors, we've talked about them, a lot. There's other infographics that specify all of them, but you're talking about things like aloe vera, sulforaphane, which is what you find on broccoli sprouts, vitamin D, the DHA and EPA, which are omega-3 fatty acids, curcumin, and oxytocin.
There is a file in the major triangulooxalates group for inflammasome inhibitors. So if you kind of remember, oh yeah, what was that? Where can I find that list? That's where you find it.
Mm-hmm.
And that file is also on Groups.io if you're a member of the triangulooxalates group there.
Yes. Alka-Seltzer Gold does not have aspirin in it. It's not a regular Alka-Seltzer. It's a different product. And it's called Alka-Seltzer Gold, and the box is golden or yellow, whatever. But it's different. So do not confuse them, and they do not exchange one for the other. It's not the same thing. And it's a combination of different bicarbonates, and it helps, again, with that exchange, between oxalate and the bicarbonate, sulfate, and the chlorine, and all of those things that we keep talking about.
Dr. Baker, who was one of the founders of the DAN movement, advocated using Alka-Seltzer Gold when kids were having meltdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we didn't know when he was talking about it originally, we didn't know anything about oxalate. So we had no way to, put that view on that. But, it may have been addressing oxalate issues even way back then. So you may hear your doctor say, oh, well, it just helps behavior problems or whatever. But just know that it's probably connected.
Mm-hmm. And of course, your antioxidants that we've talked about also last time. So that would be your CoQ10, your N-acetylcysteine, the vitamin E, alpha lipoic acid. All of these work together with the other nutrients that we've been talking about, to help us in the metabolism and to combat oxidative stress. So,
and they also help to recycle vitamin C. And of course, vitamin C, if you get too much of it, and you get an oxidative stress, it may turn into oxalate. So it's protective against that too.
Mm-hmm. So we're just going to finish quickly with this one. So basically, it's all about finding balance. I think if you've heard us, it's all about finding your own balance. So the more symptoms you have, the slower you have to go. And don't think that this is a race that you have to get to 40 to 60 quickly before you feel better, because it's in the lowering of the oxalate that you're going to already get the benefits. So there's no rush. And if you have a deficiency of a particular nutrient, that will make your body react intensely to receiving it, even if it needs it. So be careful. And as Monique very rightly said, additives matter. Try to get your supplements as pure as possible. So, you know, and it's the other thing that's really important, it's that you want to start introducing changes one at a time. And that's why we're not super fans of multi-minerals, multivitamins, or multi-anything. Because if something goes wrong, you've no idea what caused it to be wrong. And then you might be just dismissing a whole lot of things that you might indeed be needing and did not give you any reaction just because of the one component that was in there where you were reacting badly to.
And multi-minerals and even multivitamins may be fine after a certain point.
Mhm.
You know, once you've figured out
Exactly.
what works and what doesn't. And if, you know, you find, you know, a B complex or a multi-mineral with everything that works for you, awesome. You know, feel free to use it. And if you have something, you know, let's say you need a little more B, you know, more of the B6 than what your, you know, your B complex gives you, you know, you can always add a little more B on, you know, on top of that.
Yeah.
I'll agree with Patricia. It's always best to try one thing at a time. You know, that way when something goes wrong, you know, you get a reaction you don't like, you can pinpoint what's causing it.
And don't start with the whole capsule. Like, don't go out and buy a 100 milligrams of something and start there. Start with a teeny tiny amount, like an eighth of a capsule or a tenth of a capsule, and then work your way up. So then you know how you react. And then once you figure out that you do react well, then great, keep going, you know, but just be careful on the front end.
Exactly. And this is not anything to do with chemistry, but it's everything to do with your wellness.
This is the soft advice that many people don't seem to follow, and they don't give themselves enough breathing room.
So give yourself some grace. Your body's helping you get rid of a toxin, and it's doing the best it can with the ingredients it has available. So it's not a lemon. It's not something that I'm not working. It's not that I'm different from anybody. Your body is doing its absolute best to keep you well. And the natural tendency of your body is towards health. So we just need to, you know, give yourself some grace and say, this is going to take some time. The buildup of oxalate did not take over in one day. It's not going to leave overnight. And just trust the process.
I'm gonna add my Ferrari story here. If you drove your Ferrari into the gas station and you put diesel in the car engine and your Ferrari stopped working, it's not the fault of the car, it's the fuel. And so I'd like to use that analogy here, because I'm going to argue that we're all Ferraris because we need a very specific fuel mix. And maybe we need a better fuel mix than other vehicles do. Maybe you look at people around you and they're eating a diet and you don't understand how they're getting away with it. They may not get away with it over the longer haul. But what I want people to think is to remember, you don't have a lemon for a body. You had a diet that wasn't supporting you. And those are two different things. For most of my life, I thought I had a lemon for a body. And then I found out when I got my diet right, my body was just fine the way it was. So we really, I particularly really want to encourage people on this one, because if we give our body the right nutrients, we give it what it needs to do its work. And by the way, that's not just fuel, because you're also building your replacement parts. So I've started to say we are independently mobile manufacturing facilities. And so you wouldn't want your car made with inferior steel or inferior parts, right? And what you eat is your replacement parts. So the body you're going to live in next year, next decade, you're building some of that now. And so once you get this toxin out, you can build a body that might be functioning better for you as well. So I'm going to argue, I don't think most people have lemons for bodies. I think they've had a toxin that they didn't realize was in their fuel source, was in their replacement parts materials. And once you get that out, it can be a whole new ballgame.
And that goes as a perfect segue to our second point. You are not guilty of not knowing what you didn't know. I think we all fell for the spinach is healthy bit. Everybody that has ever drank a green smoothie didn't think it was going to hurt them. You know, when you gave, I don't know, I probably have eaten more almond flour than probably most people in this group. It's just been, I was buying this stuff wholesale. And, you know, it was just ridiculous. And it was delicious. Of course it was delicious, and I thought it was doing well. And I felt so good that I was giving such good, highly nutritious, you know, baked goods to my kids. And I did not know this. So just, you know, forgive yourself, give yourself that grace, and just know that now you know, and now you're on your way to get better.
And we were all doing the best we could with the knowledge we had at the time. There's none of the women that you see in front of you here think anything else about everyone who's a member of the Triangle Oxalates group. All these people, ourselves included, were doing the best we could with the knowledge that we had at the time. That's got to be a get out of jail free card.
Yeah. I mean, we've all had to relearn. I mean, I had to relearn everything that I thought about was healthy and throw it all out and start from scratch. That, you know, there were a lot of paradigm shifts. And, you know, not always fun, but, you know, you learn and you get there. You know, we've all been there. So, you know, cut yourself some slack.
Mm-hmm. Put up that oxytocin. Up with the hugs. Long hugs work best. Really squeeze somebody, you know, longer than they want. It's like, I don't care. You know, this is good for you and it's good for me. Up that oxytocin. Calms inflammation, lowers your stress response, and makes you go back from, you know, fight and flight to parasympathetic. Repair, digest, absorb. That's where you want to be. So don't be shy. Don't be shy on the hugs. Don't be shy on the holding hands. Don't be shy on all those things that put up your oxytocin.
And really, self-care is huge. You know, if you know you were in maybe mine and Patricia's situation, and even Monique's, where we're going through the diet and we're having our issues, and we have kids who are going through the diet, and sometimes we're all experiencing dumping at the same time. You know, remember to take care of yourself, because you can't put yourself last on the care list. You've got to be up there too. You can't take care of others if you're not, you know, taking care of yourself. So, you know, yes, do the hugs. You know, for me, yoga was was awesome. I wasn't, I didn't have the time to do, the strenuous exercise. I wasn't going to be at the gym. I simply didn't really have the time to do that. But I did have the time to do, 10, 15 minutes of yoga first thing in the morning, or now Tai Chi because I have arm issues and I can't do a lot of the, the floor poses, but Tai Chi, get out with the dog and take a walk. If you have a treadmill, spend 5 minutes walking on the treadmill. Meditation, all those things can, they're going to help you physically, but they're also going to help you emotionally, psychologically, so you can get through not just the physical aspects of dumping, but the emotional aspects.
And I'm glad that you mentioned pets, because my goodness, our dogs and cats and even horses and some people, help us to feel good about ourselves and probably generate that oxytocin too.
Absolutely.
And I just want to segue then right into comfort foods and drinks, because I remember having real challenges as I was going through oxalate dumping with regulating my appetite. And what I decided at that point was, if I was feeling like I needed something, I was just going to have something as long as it was low oxalate and it wasn't going to hurt me. So I think there are times when you just want to do whatever kind of self-care you can manage. And if it's a day where maybe what you need is, I would make soup, because soup, everybody at this house likes soup. And maybe I was having a bowl of soup at 9 p.m. at night because it was just going to help me to feel better. And, so some of these things can be really helpful. Try to be nutrient dense. But the other thing we did sometimes was chocolate covered caramels. The reason we did that was the caramel was low oxalate and you just had a little chocolate cover, and maybe that was enough just to feel like a human being for a moment. So
Ice cream.
How's the rhyme? So I'm actually probably going to add something. So if you want to put in the comments once we post this in the group, what are some of your comfort foods? I think this might be a really good place, to share something that works for you and that could work for somebody else. And next one is, don't take any important decisions if you're grumpy and have brain fog.
Yeah.
Most decisions can be postponed. Nothing has to be taken this second. So if you just say, it might be just give me a few minutes, or let me consult. I have a saying in Spanish that says, let me consult with a pillow. Let me sleep on it. And then let's see what happens tomorrow. So, but just be aware that what's happening, it's not in your head. It's real. I mean, we actually have explanations of why these things that you're feeling are happening. So honor that and honor yourself. And, like I said, 90%, if not more than that, of decisions could be postponed at least a couple of hours.
And apply the same to your kiddos too. Warn them about, when they feel terrible, that's not a good idea to decide whether you're going to stick with your boyfriend or deal with school drama, friend drama, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And the last point, I think it's the most important one, is that all is well. It's not in your head. And we get you. This is your tribe. We've been through there. We've gone through the process. We can talk about it in the past tense. Well, actually, it's the present tense because we're still doing it. But I mean, we've gone through what you're going through. And there was a post about, somebody feeling very much alone, because nobody understands why spinach is a bad thing, or why rhubarb, whatever, it's not the best thing since sliced bread. We get you, and just know that, we're here for you. The community is there for you as well. We're all in this together, with our grumpiness and our dumps and our need to take Epsom salts baths and whatever, but we're there for you.
And we also know that it's physiological. We know it's not all in your head. We hear that too many times, I'm sure all of us, that people on our group have been told that it's all in their head. We know that this is a physiological thing that's happening because of what oxalate's doing. So hang in there. We are your tribe. We do understand, and we will do our best to be supporting you through our Triangle Oxalates group.
And we have a couple of questions if you want. So Irina's saying, I don't feel dumping symptoms apart from my urine pH rising, which I can feel as being tired and brain foggy. Can this be due to dumping? Yes.
Absolutely. Brain fog is reported so many times, it's almost ubiquitous. I'm yet to meet or speak with anybody on our Triangle Oxalates group who hasn't had some level of brain fog. At one point, mine was so bad that my 4-year-old was sitting across from me, and I got frustrated. I said, give me that thing in front of you. She looked at me and she cocked her head and she said, Mama, the book? Like, you can't remember how to say book? And so, yeah, this is just a thing. I was actually really worried. I was on the road to early Alzheimer's. So here I am 15 years later, and I guarantee you I'm not wondering how to say book anymore. So hang in there.
Well, I remember that when I was a child, everybody called me Spacey. Do you remember that term?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That was probably brain fog.
Probably.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. We have another question. Do you add a potassium supplement in addition to your diet, even if your blood work shows potassium level is fine?
Can I throw out something?
Sure.
Where the rubber meets the road is really inside your cells. Your blood levels, it's just the highway. Now, if you went out on your street, in your city, and you put a roadblock up on, highway exit such, and you said, okay, show me which groceries are in your car, you might develop an impression because they're having a sale at Walmart, and they're having bananas for sale. So everybody has a higher proportion of bananas. But if you actually go to their refrigerator, you might find a very different story about what's there. What we're talking about is intracellular, which is inside the refrigerator. Your blood is a highway. And I'm not really sure how it happened that the doctors thought that measuring your blood was the right place to look for nutrient things. But a lot of nutrient problems happen because you have a problem with transporting the nutrient from your blood into your cells. And so if you're having trouble moving it from your blood into your cells, then your blood level is going to be high. Does that make sense? And so it's really probably not that good of a measure. It is, maybe it will measure it if you live in a country where you can't get food and you can't get nutrition. And so that might, be an indicator. But for those of us who live in countries where you can eat whatever you want to, and you can get nutrition however you want to, that's probably not the major issue. So just be careful because I think a lot of doctors think that, measuring the blood is more scientific, but really in a sense, it may not be. Okay.
I'll say yes, I do take a potassium but as part of a multivitamin. So nothing additional, just what I would take from a daily multi. So not a lot, but yeah.
I think some of our members have said that when they up their thiamine, they seem to need more potassium. Have you heard that?
Mhm.
And so, what you're doing may affect your need for other nutrients.
Yeah,
And
so that's that balance thing again. Yeah.
right. And so, if you have an issue suddenly because you introduce something new, then get out there and look at the stories that other people have told about, well, how did they solve that problem? And did it work? Because what we want is for it to be effective for you. And there will be, where there is science, we can read about it, but when something has not been investigated yet, there may not be any science out there to tell you about why something works.
So
And
how about I hit the button to end our recording for today? Because we've got a nice sort of pause here, and we're just over an hour as opposed to going longer than usual. So thank you everyone who attended. This was one of the best attended sessions that we've had. Lovely to have you all here. I will sign off on behalf of all of us, Karla, Susan, Patricia, and myself. And we'll stay around for what I'll call the after party for a few minutes. And maybe we can chat a little bit more with the folks who've attended. So if you're watching this, thanks for being here. And we'll be back with another Wizards of Ox in a couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because there you're going to see every single one of the videos that we've made, and then you have some place to go back to.
Yeah, like
and
and
subscribe to our channel.
Exactly. Have a great day, everyone.